Well, I think just like with most things, it's better to, if you can, just really stay on top of it from the beginning. Um, I know sometimes I get home from these appointments and I'm so tired and I've got so many thoughts in my head that I just want to, shove the paper in the drawer and deal with it later. And then that happens over the year and you've got this big pile of papers that you just don't know what to do with. And then that feels very overwhelming. So I really just make an effort to, have my hole puncher and I just punch the hole in the paper and stick it in its section and try really to stay on top of it. And my husband can't always make all of our appointments, so it's helpful for him. So I kind of think of it as kind of a little gift I'm giving to him to keep everything organized. So if we have some appointments one day, he can come home from work and I can just get out the binder and show him the reports and everything that we discussed that day, and that makes him feel included in her care also. So I think the more you can, that parents can just stay on top of all of the organization, the easier it is. And also just not to be afraid to ask doctors for reports. They're always happy. I've never had a doctor say no or I can't do that. It's always really easy for them to print them out. So it's easy to forget or just feel like you're asking too much of the doctor for that, but they really don't mind. And I think they appreciate the fact that the parents want to keep documents.
I realized that going in and looking at these amazing apps and these amazing Pinterest organization, I realized that I couldn't do something that was electronic. Even though I definitely have a smartphone, I use apps all the time. I needed to process his diagnosis, his conversations, because those are all auditory, not kinesthetic. And I needed to write down what the people were saying. And I think that is really important for parents to find out what, first of all, what your love language is, and also what you do as a learner, and not beat yourself up because of that. As a kinesthetic learner, it's really hard to switch auditory to kinesthetic, but actually doing that flow of writing will make you process. Or if you do know that you're an auditory learner, take a recorder. And my husband definitely learns that way and record those conversations. And so he is definitely using more auditory apps for his process in the hospital. And I think just knowing yourself, you're going to organize yourself so much better when you know yourself and know what you need and how you process.
It's sort of intimidating and confusing at first to know which is the important stuff and which is the not important stuff. I don't think that should be. Don't let that stop someone from doing it, because it sort of, you'll learn what's more important stuff by doing it. And the notes that you're always going back to are the ones that you're going to realize this is the important stuff. So this is where my notes should focus on. The notes that you wrote about, some detail that you never looked at again. Those type of details maybe aren't the most important ones, but finding that out requires, well, let's just start. If it's, I can take notes about a few things, start with those things. If I can take notes about a ton of things, start with those things. Maybe not all of them are important, but just start with start with the next step.
Our system is set up to be sustainable, meaning it takes very little maintenance, because free time for any parent is a luxury. And so it's very little work to maintain. The downside to that is when we need a specific piece of information, we have to go find it in the specific folder. And so most of the time we will just collect the documents in a pile, and every 2 weeks or so spend 15 or 20 minutes filing them away. Not all the information is equally valuable. So the diagnosis for autism, genetic diagnosis for my son, and the most recent speech and behavior evals are way more valuable than therapy notes, hospital discharges, anything else. so let's see. So the tip around that is probably to prioritize, to figure out what's really important and what you'll keep wanting to reference, and prioritize that to be accessible. That's probably another tip we have, is we have a easily accessible Google Doc of a summary of Caleb and his conditions and his motivators, and a kind of introduction to who he is that we can give access to any new provider or any new caretaker.
Don't stress out about forgetting stuff. You're gonna forget stuff. That is the biggest thing, is when I realized I would forget something, I would really beat myself up about it. And that's the biggest thing, is if you realize you forget something, just call the clinic or call in the med. I've found that the medical system around medically complex child is extremely understanding. And so, you know, don't ever be afraid to ask for help, and don't be intimidated by being human. You know, we all forget. No matter how organized I am, I still have times when I forget to write something down or file a piece of paperwork or even request paperwork. You know, that's always a big thing. Oh, sorry, I forgot to get a discharge summary. And they're, you know, always happy to help you. So,